last year I had 500 people here, and I really wanted to be on the ground and see how people reacted and the reactions of them living in this prototype living, that's what we call it, living in this way, was really fascinating to me, because people dropped really quickly. They stopped using their mobile phones. They very, very quickly learnt how to, passively learnt. So, for example, we've got solar chargers here for mobile phones. We're like, look, you don't need the lights on. We don't need energy. Let's just use the sun. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. And they won't forget that. And it makes a connection, not a disconnect.
You're listening to the Spaceship Earth podcast with me, Dan Burgess. Welcome to the show. This is episode 24. Thanks for tuning in. Means a lot that you're supporting the Spaceship Earth, and hopefully you'll enjoy this next conversation. The Spaceship Earth podcast is explorations, conversation and riffs with humans who are journeying towards a more beautiful world, a world which recognises the Earth is a living system, a complex web of relationships and interconnections which together create the conditions for all life to thrive and survive, including us humans, and where every living thing is a participant in this web. We're all co-creators, regenerating life, a world where we are all active crew of the Spaceship Earth, shifting us away from the passenger mentality of a passive consumerist society as the spell of the industrial growth, infinite growth society starts to run out. I talk with activists, creatives, artists, healers, entrepreneurs, mavericks, thinkers, writers, teachers, and many more, because there are no passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're all crew. In this episode, I'm having a conversation with a remarkable woman called Louise Middleton, the founder of Kudhva. Now, Kudhva is quite a difficult thing to explain, but hopefully through the conversation you'll get it. But essentially, Louise has dreamed up, really, a place called Kudhva, which exists currently on the North Cornish coast in the UK. It's a very remote, very wild spot, very interesting place, landscape. And she has designed this place for people to ground themselves, to stay, to experience nature, I would say, in a very raw way. A place to kind of strip away our distractions of modern life, and to ground back ourselves into life, to help us with our kind of creative energies, our sense of connection to place, with nature, with each other, and through a sort of remarkable kind of approach to designing Kudhvas themselves, which you will understand as we get into the conversation. But I don't want to talk too much about it, because I think that's what we're expressing. But I think what Louise is doing is, this moment in time is really important, because she's also experimenting a lot with what this type of context is doing to humans, why it's so important, what's the impacts of being able to disconnect ourselves from this kind of highly modern way of sort of being in the world to something which is more stripped back, more raw, slightly simpler, but more connected. And how does that impact? Particularly, she's exploring a lot around how does that impact our creativity and our sense of connection with each other. So, super fascinating. I went down in April. I've been chatting with Louise on and off for a couple of years since she started Kudhva. Managed to get down in April, stayed a night down there and a day. And we had this conversation on the back of coming off a huge gale that had blown through the night while I was sleeping in a Kudhva. But yeah, check out in the show notes. There's some photos. There's links to Kudhva and Louise and what she's doing. Highly recommend if you get the chance to go down and stay there. If you're in the zone down there in the hood, check in. It's an amazing place. So yeah, let's cut to it. This is episode 24 of the Spaceship Earth podcast with Louise Middleton from Kudhva. Right, well, Louise, welcome to the Spaceship Earth podcast.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Here live from a Kudhva.
That's correct. I'm hoping the acoustics are going to be good.
Oh, well, I hope our listeners get a little bit of the wind effect, because we're quite high up. I mean, I'll put some photos obviously in the show notes people can see. But I mean, what is a Kudhva? Can we start with that? Like, what is this? Just for someone that is not here with us right now, how would you? How can we describe the Kudhva?
It's actually really difficult. But what we're sitting in at the moment is a structure, and that's 7 meters off the ground, so it is really high, and it's got cast steel steps that go up probably about 15, 16, don't exactly know. And then a box that's made out of larch, Scandinavian larch, and then the interior is birch ply, and it's kind of geometric shape with a mezzanine, little mezzanine on the top. It's a really fun space.
It's like, I mean, I slept in one last night, and it was extraordinary, I have to say. It was like very elemental. I mean, we picked a night, right, because there was some proper gales coming through. We're right on the North Cornish coast, aren't we? So, like, maybe let's give some context to this place, and maybe we just get into actually just how this all came about. Because, you know, tell us about here and why how Kudhva started, I guess. Yeah.
So, I was looking for a piece of land. I looked for about 2 years, and I've had pieces of land before that I've managed, sort of sustainably managed. And I had some money, and I wanted to put it into somewhere that felt really safe, and somewhere that I could do something with that was really exciting, and something that I could share with people. And anyway, I looked for about 2 years. I made friends with lots of farmers up and down the coast, which is pretty great.
And this bit of North Cornwall for you, so for listeners who aren't in the UK, so we're right on the kind of North Cornish coast here, right?
Yeah. So I managed to find this piece of land. I saw it a year before, and then it suddenly disappeared. And I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, you know, from the map above, that is amazing, because it's got 2 water sources on it. It's 43 acres, and it's got an old engine house. Apparently it's the first fully restored engine house in North Cornwall. It was restored in 1972. But yeah, it's a very, very special piece of land, and it was an old slate quarry, and it had been abandoned. And it went off the market, and then I saw it a year later with only 3 days to go. So I ran down with my partner, who's an ecologist, and we literally ran around, and he was like, "Louise, it's great. Get it." So I got on the phone, and that was all that I could do. I couldn't turn up to the auction. There wasn't enough time. I think it was my kids' Easter holidays. So I just did it all on the phone, which feels like Monopoly.
And you got it?
I got it. And I got it with a 999-year lease. So it's with the Duchy of Cornwall. So my peppercorn rent that I have to give him is a daffodil every year that I'm meant to take to Highgrove.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that seriously right?
Yeah.
Do you do that?
I made him a belt the first year out of organic Highland cattle from North Devon with a daffodil on it. And underneath it, it'd written my first year's peppercorn rent. I hope that would cover me for a few years.
Amazing. Wow. And so then why Kudhva? What was the...
So I knew that the only thing that I could do, that I couldn't build a house on it, I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could pretty much do was camping. So that made it really simple. And I stayed here with my boys for about a year. And we just camped here. I had an old VW van, and we just camped. And because I've had bits of land before, I knew I just needed to take my time with it. And I really didn't want anyone forcing me to you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with it, Louise? So I just spent time getting to know it.
That's interesting in just that whole idea of spending time somewhere without like interfering and I guess getting to understand more about how the land, what it's all about, I guess, and what's going on. And did you discover things in that year that sort of were different to what did you come with some assumptions but that were sort of shifted during that year by spending time? Or
I mean, as we walked up to the Kudhva, I was just showing you some strawberries, and they've just come out 2 days ago. So, when you have a piece of land like this and you're very quiet on it, and it's very simple, and you're walking across it a lot, like I am, all the time, every day I notice something different, and it's in your own time. It's in bio time, they call it, nature time. And, that is just amazing, having a relationship with a piece of land. It's a very special thing. It's like having a relationship with a person, I think.
Yeah, and I had a scoot around the site just this morning, and there's a lot going on here. So I imagine you must be still discovering things or noticing things.
Yes. Yeah, and what happens is you clear an area, and then another area reveals itself. And because this was an industrial site, really early industrial slate quarry, it had many kind of leach systems on it, which I'm still trying to work out in my head, and lots of industrial buildings, small buildings, lots of roads, multiple roads.
When would this have been? When was this fully functioning then, as a mine or quarry? And
I think it was. I should know this, but I actually don't. Sorry.
A while ago.
1870, something like that.
Yeah,
1870, I think. And I think it was only running for 20, 25 years. It was an unsuccessful seam. It's of Delabole slate. So in slate, you get quartz seams, and in quartz, you get gold.
Huh.
But yes, it is. There are mountains of slate here, and so much biodiversity within that. So you get lots of low-level plants in slate quarries. So it's the habitat here. It's a mosaic habitat. So it's got bare rock, a waterfall, another water source, willow woodland, and we got deciduous woodland here as well. So within that woodland, we built a Danish cabin, a temporary building. It's quite big, and it's a 2/3 copy of the engine house, and it's surrounded by bluebell woods, and they are just about to pop.
So that's because I was walking down there this morning. So that that's a sort of is to sort of honour the chimney shaft, is it, of the mine, that wooden structure you've got?
Yeah,
that's
right? Exactly right.
Yeah,
and just really useful as well to it's a nod to the heritage on site. And it makes sense.
So you were saying, like, so camping felt like, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, I'll link to obviously all the photos and stuff of here, so people can really see what this place is about. But it's certainly not. It's certainly not camping.
No.
How did the Kudhva itself? How did this come about?
Well, after my first year, I thought, right, okay, I know what it is that I want to do. I want to build something really original, and I decided to call Ben Huggins, who wasn't an architect at the time but is now. And I thought, I need to get Ben. He's a genius, and he is a genius. I need to get him before he becomes ultra famous, and I can't get a hold of him. But I'd worked with Ben before on other projects, and he's just really fun, very sparky, and incredibly talented. He's studied with John Makepeace doing furniture design, and then did a lot of buildings, and then has become an architect. And so we walked the land many, many times, and got together a master plan of the site. So we realised we needed to fit in with planning. We need to make temporary buildings and temporary buildings need to be made off-site and then shipped onto site. And then, I was the client, so I had really, really specific needs, and I wanted the Kudhva to feel really challenging. I wanted them to be up high so that they were in the elements. I wanted people to, a lot of people are quite scared of heights, very slightly scared of heights. They won't tell you, but I can see. But when you come up and down the stairs, even that in itself, very quickly, I see people walk up for the first time, and then I see them a couple of days later, and they're just like down the stairs. And it's great. It's a challenge that you've overcome.
Yeah.
And it has that like feel good, that's that's how I want people to leave. Like, wow, what just happened to me there?
I love that.
But yeah, so they had to be temporary buildings. They had to be within certain dimensions. I wanted them to have a big sofa, which is what we're sitting on now, with a viewing window, which is huge, which we're looking at my goats down there who follow me everywhere.
I'll stick those up. People can see what we can see. You won't be able to feel what we can feel, but you'll be able to see what we can see a little bit.
Yeah. And
this was still your brief. This was your sort of brief to Ben, was it, at the time?
And we sat down and we did lots of drawings, and and we came up with this design, the Kudhva. So they're site specific. I also wanted them to stand really high above the ground so that the ecology underneath wasn't ruined. A lot of houses are built slightly over, but everything underneath dies back. And actually, they have proved to be amazing because there are no damp issues, because you've got wind flowing around them all the time. But they're contemplating spaces. They're 100% off grid, so you only have candles and torches. They're comfortable, but small too, small enough so that you get outside, and that's the important thing.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about, because obviously I woke up in one this morning, and spent the night with my youngest daughter Willow. We both slept in one last night, and it was as you're talking, it's exactly that. We were like super comfortable. There was the elements of proper darkness. So there was a point where we got in slightly late with my dog that wanted to eat your goats, and it's a little bit of tired kids and everything like that, so in the night I got her, which we got sorted. Then I wanted to check on my boy because he was in the van with the dog. Just wanted to check he was all right. So I thought, when I had one torch on us, I said, "Well, I'll be all right. You'll be all right." When she, yeah, fine. So she was like in pitch black in the Kudhva on her own for about 10-15 minutes, and with this pretty full on gale, But she really experienced something, Well, we both did, And there's something, as you talk about, there's something about. They're very thoughtfully designed, but I love the fact, like you say, you're very aware of your environment, your surroundings, and I think that's what's really interesting about this. It's like you're really, by the way this place is, I think people are, you're I don't say forced, but you are. I think that's obviously people are coming here for that, but you have to lean into what's happening around you. I love that.
That's a really good description. Leaning into it. It's like you're being asked to. Yeah. And I think it's really good for you. And I think, last year I had 500 people here, and that wasn't even to the events that we run. Yeah. And I really wanted to be on the ground and see how people reacted and the reactions of them living in this prototype living. Right, that's what we call it. Yeah. Living in this way was really fascinating to me, because people dropped really quickly. They stopped using their mobile phones. They very, very quickly learnt how to, passively learnt. So, for example, we've got solar chargers here for mobile phones. We're like, look, you don't need the lights on. We don't need energy. Yeah. Let's just use the sun. Yeah. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. And they won't forget that. And it makes a connection, not a disconnect.
Yeah. I mean, it's such interesting times, because when I step back and go back into the sort of constructed home and the city, and and all the things that we've become used to being, around us, and things that we need in order just to go about our daily lives. And it's for me, it's fascinating letting go of a lot of that. And like you say, being in somewhere like Kudhva, where you have to minimalise. You have to get rid of a lot of these things that you might, feel are part of your day-to-day lives. But that letting go is just wonderful, because then once you've sort of surrendered to the place, I think you just start to become more present. Actually, there's a sort of a presence that happens.
Yeah. And time expands.
Yeah.
I think you almost feel like you've been here for more than 2 days, but it's not a horrible feeling. It's a really nice feeling.
So this one we're in now, this was the first one, and then you now have 4.
Yeah, so we've got 4 Kudhva, and Kudhva
what does
means...
Kudhva mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it means hideout in Cornish. So these are hideouts, and they are hideouts.
They definitely are hideouts.
So, we would like to... We've designed a 4-man Kudhva. These are 2-man. So we designed some 4-man Kudhva, and we're designing something at the moment I can't really talk about, but it's very exciting. We'll do another episode,
but at some time to explore that one.
But yeah, so this one was the first one. It was the prototype. So I lived in this for a month. We built this in a cow shed in Tintagel, which is very funny.
Brilliant.
But and the other 3 were built by 3 cabinet makers in 3 months.
And how did they enjoy this brief?
Well,
it's pretty unusual, right? I can't imagine you would get asked to build a Kudhva very often.
I think if everyone knows, if Ben or I ask them to do something, it's not going to be normal, probably. But I remember walking in and seeing them with Ben, and it was all triangles. I'll find a picture for you. But I wrote some notes a while ago because I did a talk, and all triangles came into my head. And we walked in, and there were, it was at the stage that it hadn't been put together. They were just scratching their heads a bit. That you could have got it really wrong. But I think one of the things that we've been and it's really exciting because you suddenly learn a lot about yourself when you do a project like this. We really needed some can-do people, and I decided to do it in really quick bursts, and that's been so successful for us, being able to build really quickly, really succinctly, and to put it in, not to elongate a project. And that has really, really worked.
And were they staggered then, the 4? Were they all up pretty fast then?
So we did this one. I lived in it for a month, which was awesome. It was amazing. I'd have that door open and have a cup of coffee in the morning in my silk dressing gown,
up in the trees, up in the sky.
And then think, there are some amazing birds right in front of me, and they don't know that I'm here.
Yeah. I mean, this morning, I must admit, when the dawn chorus started, and there's this mad gale going on, but Will and I, it was literally like, I thought the birds were in the Kudhva, because the one we're in it's got quite a lot. It's like a copse around it, isn't there? And it's
it is. And a stream.
We were sort of looking for the birds.
Yeah.
It was quite extraordinary.
And they're so nice in the summer. You can open the door and just sleep with, looking out, so you're even higher when you're up in the bed, just lying down, drifting. So we have lots of books in the Kudhva as well, lots of architectural books, and that's really important, that you just sit and read and talk. You go to bed early because there are no lights.
Well, it gets dark, right? It's kind of it's the rhythm that we've been moving to for thousands of years, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I've had people wake up at 12 o'clock and just like, God, we've missed the day. We've come down, especially, we missed the day. And, you think, oh, good. I'm glad you've had a really good sleep. You need it.
And you must have. I mean, that month you spent in here, then you must have learned a lot again about how this. I don't know what was it. Did it lead to, did it lead into the design of how you've sort of designed the whole place, and what did you learn on that month?
Yeah, so it was really just about making sure the Kudhva, could be lived in and could be lived in really well. And if we need to make any more iterations to it, which we did, but not many. And again, that comes up time and time again, is that Ben is an incredible designer and he just gets it right. He gets it right really quickly. That's really clever. It's not an easy thing to do. But the others we put together, we had them come on a big lorry and we had a crane driver here and we put the legs up. And from the first iteration, they're quite hard. We moved this one in with a telehandler. And we had the glass in separately. So I was up on the telehandler putting the glass in. Wow. And which is a bit tricky, so we decided to do it in another way next time. But all the glass panels came inside the Kudhva, and the other Kudhva are very, very slightly smaller. They're very, very well built. I don't know if you can see the difference. So this is slightly bigger, but I love this Kudhva. It is my favourite because I spent all that time in it. And the stairs are the other side of the door.
Yeah, that's right. Can see it now.
The health and safety danger access. So we didn't change much, but we put the legs up. We put it all up in one day, and the crane came and popped them on top. And I just wanted to do all four quite quickly again, so that the ecology could grow back underneath it. Because obviously there's an amount of land damage that you do, and I'm so careful here. Back planting and making sure everything goes back.
And the communal kitchen space, and so again, was this all part of thinking about how's this site going to operate as a kind of, because it's interesting. I was thinking last night, and I was down in Devon last week and talking to some people about some 20-somethings about home and housing, and there's quite a lot of talk about sort of community type approaches to living. And chatting to this one guy who's building some with 4 other friends, a community based housing setup, but actually they're building one structure for food and gathering and whatever, and then their own small structures for their own space. And obviously this is about here you've got, transient guests coming in and out and visitors and stuff. But actually it's a community, right? The design of it is
you can steer people if you're clever. If you can steer people to the right places and allow them to here at Kudhva you can either be really communal, or you can just hang out your Kudhva and not see anyone. So you've got that choice. So they've all got fire pits outside them, and you could take everything from inside the communal building and cook here. Yeah. So sometimes that happens, but more often than not, people really like to talk. Yeah. And I think there's this perfect amount of people that you can have, that kind of the mix has got to be right. And it's good if there's someone around just to kind of just slightly link. And then lots of conversations happen, lots of friendships, lots of business, good business happens here. And that I really wanted that.
Interesting. And so where are people, I mean, when you started, like, where are people how do people start to find out about this, what you're doing?
People come from, I really wanted it to be like an international project as well. I wanted people from everywhere to come, and luckily that's happened. Like the first year, I think I had lots of people from Holland, Nepal, Canada, lots of places. Amazing. I haven't written them all down, but yeah, and lots of people from Cornwall come as well, which is great. And Devon and Bristol is obviously easy. Yeah.
And what are you noticing about, because you've done, like, you've just been experimenting, haven't you, with this artist retreat?
Yeah, so although the Kudhva are for clients that come in maybe for 2 days, my sort of research on just being on the ground has led me to want to make other Kudhva. It was always part of our master plan. Kudhva just means hideout. So, this is a Kudhva. A 4-man hideout would be a Kudhva. A workspace would be a Kudhva. They're all... so every year we wanted to build something, or maybe every other year, to sit within the main master plan, and the right amount of people being on site without damaging the site and it retaining its wild. And that is really important as well, that there aren't too many people here. But yeah, sorry, I forgot your question.
So I know that you just had this you just did this experiment, I think, where you had
the artist in residence
thing. Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
So we decided, Ben and I have been looking at live workspaces, really optimum live workspaces, because I want people to come here and feel optimum, really optimum, be, leaving thinking I can do a project. And a lot of people write to me and say that's what's happened when they've come here. So, being able to come and do your work, hopefully you're doing work that sits with you really well and your personality really well and is part of your life. They're the kind of people that we have that come here. So, we wanted to experiment with live, like really, succinct, optimum live workspace like no other ever seen before. And thinking that you can do that. I don't know whether I can do that or not, but I think I've got a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get some data and research, and I thought I'd really like to do an artist residency. So we've just had 2 weeks ago, we had all the Kudhva full with one was a filmmaker, Right to Rome, and they live on the road in their van. They're amazing. Some guys that were finishing off a book, and musicians, so he was making quite a lot of music inside the Kudhva, and just doing a lot of photography. And then we had a sustainable fashion designer who's really incredible, who makes garments, really technical garments, recycled tents. And then we had an interior architect who's designing a floating sauna at the moment. She decided.
A floating sauna, brilliant.
Yeah. But it was amazing for me to see as well. We interviewed them at the beginning and interviewed them at the end, asking how Kudhva changed that sort of process. And we think that 5 days is a really great time to do a really nice big chunk of work where you can go away and just keep flowing with it. But yeah, they were all very, very different and used the Kudhva in very different ways. And they've all come out with some... the only output we asked for was just a blog at the end of it. And they all, they're starting to send things now, and it's really exciting.
Amazing. And what do you... I think this is all... I guess it makes sense because, again, when we're working, many of us are working in, spaces that are kind of highly modernised or, efficient, and, have got all these kind of, lighting, lots of lights and, and electricity and all these kind of facilities, but also even the rhythm of work is often quite, it's quite set in many ways for many of us, and I guess the experiment you've just done must be fascinating because you're sort of throwing all of that up in the air really here, but then you're adding in all of this energy and so like even like taking away mains lighting, But as I was walking around today again, you're just struck by how incredible the light is here and how it shifts and changes and what that must be doing to your creative process or your energy itself or your concentration and focus. So you've got all these sort of wild dimensions, I guess, that are probably stirring things up.
Yeah. And, there's been a lot of research on elevated thought patterns when you're up high.
Huh.
And not only is Kudhva itself, the quarry itself up high, so like we can see the sea now.
Yeah, I mean we're properly elevated.
And then the Kudhva is elevated and something happens. It's like your shoulders drop and your head goes up and you start thinking bigger, more creative thoughts.
Huh.
And, I was really interested. Yeah, really interested in that. But yeah, and they all knew that they were coming to an off-grid spot. So for the filmmakers, they needed to make sure they had all their power packs and things like that as well. But actually they dropped that in the end. And they did loads of written work, which is what happens when you work off-grid.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like how these constraints tend to go the other way. They tend to make us more productive, more creative, or and more alive.
Yeah.
I'm sure more spontaneous, more kind of and all these things that we sort of often are kind of many in our kind of fast, modern, busy lives are sort of looking for those kinds of abilities to work in those ways. And actually there's something, isn't it, about how obviously say constraints breed creativity, but it's for me it's so interesting because I'm puzzled by the pace that modern civilization's going at because I'm worried by it deeply because it just feels like we're moving towards an edge,
Yeah.
and but it seems also like no matter how much information, how much intelligence our bodies are telling us and science tells all these things, we're all going. I don't know where we're going or where we're heading, but when you do disrupt your way of doing things intentionally, and you do experiment more in stuff, it's extraordinary what comes through a process like that where you go, actually, we don't need to be running that fast all the time. And don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it becomes analog, and if you're working off grid, but it's not just that. It's the nature around you. It's really it's so powerful. It is so powerful. And, when you breathe fresh air, really fresh air, and you drink, we have borehole water here, and you sleep well, your brain starts functioning, in a much better way.
Yeah, we in the sort of, we talk about the story of separation that's of separation from life that's occurred in our modern world, but here you are literally participating with the wider natural world. It's just you're in it.
Yeah,
you're part of it.
Yeah,
and you really feel that. I mean, we're actually it's properly galing today, but you can get that movement with the trees, which is just when do you ever have that?
No, it's really special.
I think that's interesting. What this collecting, running these kind of experiments and collecting some data on this. I think that's there's a lot in that because I think we intuitively know that we're all frying ourselves with technology and social media and always on, and we're just so distracted from something I was reading the other day. When it stops almost us being able to open our imaginations to what else could be.
Yes. It's contemplation.
Yeah.
Stopping and letting your mind grow and contemplation. Great ideas come from that. And that is your, if you for me, I'm here all the time. So it's, sometimes I think I'm a bit too wild abandon, probably. And I go down to the shop and I think, oh my God, what am I?
Look, wild Kudhva types.
I catch myself in the mirror and go, wild woman. But, not, hopefully not as well. But, I think to create a gap in your life is really have a little gap, even if it's just 2 days. I think it's really beneficial, and that is I want people to come here, and I want them to share their stories, and I want them to feel really safe, and I want them to just open their minds, and I want them to be really sustainable and really raw.
Yeah.
I worked with another really good friend of mine, really lucky. I went to art college at Camberwell in the 1990s, and all of my friends are creatives, really. And I feel really, it's so incredible that I know all those people now. And I just hooked up with an old friend, and she's got a company. She's a creative. But we've just been working on these Kudhva values and experience principles, and I was just going to read them out to you because it's like a really solid piece of work that we've just done. So we were trying to find the North Star for Kudhva, and came up with architectural hideouts in unexpected places. And because I've got lots of future plans in other places as well. And then the Kudhva values were challenging perceptions, raw intention, prototype living, and mesmeric sustainability. And the experience principles, so the principles that people should feel when they come here and should leave with those feelings, are ruthless kindness, curated creativity, wild abandon, elevated experience, and off-grid conversations. And that is my filter.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that makes sense to me, having had 24 hours here. I mean, I think the edge, this rawness, but also this, what I would call the edge of comfort, maybe. I quite like, because I like the fact that, it's very thoughtful. It's very awesome, but it's very wild. And, the place, it's like, for me, it's about you're living within this environment here, not the other way around. Do you know what I mean? It's like the place is the place here. It's doing its thing. As much as you can see, you're trying to allow the non-human world to sort of have priority, and it's very, very rare in our lives, particularly in highly developed industrial culture societies, where you can find that, where you can experience that, So you've got this kind of like, you're well looked, you're well kind of held here, but you're on the edge.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me anyway, that's my sort of, and I really appreciate that, because I feel the need for more edge in our lives. A little bit more,
the right place,
a little bit more kind of like, a little, just being shaken up a little bit, But as I say, not in a dangerous or scary way, but shaken up, having your senses a little bit stirred.
Yes. Yeah, and it is that.
Yeah, awakened.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. when we arrived yesterday, you were running the Sunday sessions. Tell me about that structure, because there's a fun, interesting story behind that, isn't there? And how that all came about.
Yeah, we had a call from a production company who work with Carlsberg. And they make a bar in an unusual place every year, Carlsberg, and then they film it. And they saw Kudhva and they saw our space, and we already knew we wanted something. We kind of have a really good idea about where are good locations for Kudhva. So we knew that above the waterfall would be a really great spot, obviously. Above the 40-foot waterfall.
Above a waterfall, on the North Cornish coast.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, and it's really properly. It's lovely, kind of gnarly little trees and copses, and it's very. I mean, it's a quiet spot.
Yeah, and that's underneath it is the original quarry. So there's water in the bottom of it, probably about 1/4 of an acre. And then there's 40-foot waterfall, and then the big ledge of deciduous woodland with all these bluebells that I was talking about earlier. And Ben from New British Design came up with, we'd surveyed the engine house here on site. So the stone engine house, the traditional Cornish engine houses, which we have. And I don't think it had ever been surveyed before, but it has these really beautiful proportions. I don't know if you've been in it yet. Next time. But it's got they're all really different, the engine houses, but it's got really lovely proportions. So we surveyed that and made a 2/3 copy. So we just know that any kind of architectural hideouts that we make, whether they're a bar, which it was for Carlsberg, also has to have accommodation in it. And it's got a mezzanine level in it, and it's got 4 bunk beds. Again, really fun. The Kudhva that we're sitting in now is really fun. It's meant to be. And then it's got 2 beds downstairs. But so Carlsberg, Ben designed it as a flat pack because it's temporary building, and we use temporary footings, so it could be taken down. And and it's got as I said, a 2/3 copy of the engine house, sliding doors everywhere, so it's really beautiful. It's the space can really change in there to however you want it to have the light is, or you can sit in the corner of the sofa and look out at the quarry and the cave at the back of the quarry, and I mean, it's pretty special. And on Saturdays we do yoga on the deck, and it's a really good event space, and it's also not a coupled space, it's a space for separate people. So I've been speaking to Exeter University and Falmouth University about doing some renewable research here. So it's a great research station. It means that you could just house 6 separate people in it. But we have events there. We rent it out sometimes, and then we have events there. So yesterday, when you arrived, we had, we call it our Sunday service, and it's just a way for us and the community to celebrate Sunday. And we have some amazing DJs. We always just select different people. We have a crew that we always use who are very good friends and really talented. And we have amazing food. Always wood-fired chefs here. We've got about 5 different wood-fired chefs that we use. So yesterday actually was a guy called Will from Beautiful in the Feast, and a guy that was Master of Taste at Ottolenghi for 6 years. So not bad.
No. I missed it. What were they doing?
Damn.
We turned up too late.
Yeah, flatbreads and amazing salmon and dal and roasted broccoli, and I mean they do good.
Nice.
And then it's a family day, so loads of kids, lots of different from really young to really old, and in between.
Amazing. Well, I've been, I mean, I sort of feel like I need to lie down on the Kudhva again because my senses are awake. It's been really interesting to come here, and we've been chatting on and off. Feels like for about probably a year or so, isn't it? So it's nice to get here now and actually feel the Kudhva experience. What obviously I'll put all the links in the show notes and people can check you out. But what's the plans for this year, and how do people get in touch? And
you can look at our website, www.kudhva.com. It's funny spelling.
I love the fact now I know it's hideout. That's just so brilliant.
Yeah. So great, the Cornish language.
Yeah.
On the front of the Kudhva, on the front of here, you've got open, and then Yegri is open in Cornish. So there's quite a bit of Cornish. It's a dying language.
Yeah.
It's really unusual. Feels really lots of cuz. And
is it being kept alive at all? The language? Sorry.
I don't think there's very much funding to go towards it.
Yeah.
So we really, that's kind of within our sort of future phasing that we use it quite a lot. On all our sort of ecological signage and route throughs and So, but you can get in touch. Yeah, have a look at the website. We're on Instagram. Our Instagram posts really kind of show what Kudhva's like, and you can put in a hashtag Kudvibes, Kudvibes, and they're other people's experience of Kudhva. So it's really authentic and kind of it's like one of my guilty pleasures if I haven't been here all weekend and I'm just trying to
search that hashtag.
Yeah, I'm like, who's been here and where did they go? And then I think, wow, they got down there. No one else has got down there before.
Who's having Kud vibes?
Who is?
Who had them?
Yeah. But it's a really good way to share. So and then you can just DM us straight on there, or just get in touch and email, or there's a really good booking system. So
and you are. I mean, we've got this book in front of us. You're people are picking up on what you're doing here, right? And some, you've got quite. Feels like there's a lot of interest in what you've got cooking here.
Yeah, I think when you do something original, people love it. I don't think there's enough originality. That's one of my really big things. And, I think a lot of people just mimic and copy and regurgitate, and that's really boring.
Do you think...
and unsensory.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. And do you think people are... Seeing the people you've had coming through Kudhva, are you seeing sort of patterns or themes in the types of people that are coming? Are people coming with a real sense that they know what this is, they know they need this almost thing, or are people just coming with? I'm sort of curious as in, because it feels to me like, as I say, like the more the sort of crazier the modern world gets, the more Kudhva we might need in our lives,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether if there's any of that, if people are sort of feeling that, coming with that kind of like hope, or are they just coming because of I guess there's so much going on. There's so much about what you're doing here.
I think, have lots of different types of people, but I think everyone leaves, feeling like they've had a break from the world. Yeah. From the modern world. Yeah. And I think it's really positive. And I think that, we get some really hardcore travellers, so for them this is nothing, But we also get people that probably feel quite challenged with it, think it's, so.
Yeah, it's nice. I was having making a cup of coffee this morning. It's probably about 7:15, and I bumped into a chap who was making a cup as well, and he was in one of the Kudhvas. And we had big wins last night, right? No, I mean, not the biggest wins you get down here, but they were still pretty significant, and it was so cool because it's like, we were both kind of like, God, it's quite exhilarating, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? Whereas like you can sort of imagine us sort of like, down the road, a bit further into some sort of campsite, and go, what a bloody awful night, wasn't it? I mean, then the roof nearly came off the place, and it's sort of just this. There's just a flip in mindset of which it's like, wow, how amazing to be sort of feeling like you were kind of being, enveloped. You were sort of, this gale was surrounding you, but but you felt, like this is a pleasure.
Yeah,
you know? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it was good to turn up, and your wife was just saying, I loved it.
Yeah.
Thought, oh yeah, that is really genuine.
Yeah,
she did.
Yeah, no, she did. They all did. They've all like woke up like, with a real sort of like wow. And we went down to Trebarwith this morning with the dog, and just the energy on the beach. They were all running and climbing the rocks. Everyone was just like, whoa, and dog was going bonkers. You could just feel this kind of like elemental kind of soup, just, and everyone was buzzing.
Yeah, and the more you get it, the more you want it.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
and I really feel like, without making too hasty a remark, I think the Cornish are quite wild, and I really feel really at home with that.
Yeah.
And I think they're, they are can-doers from this sort of industrial past. And, being somewhere like here with the slate quarry, I mean, I don't know how they move some of those pieces, manually, had all this incredible engineering, but also like a really stoic determination. And, I think they're wild because you become a part of your landscape.
Yeah, right.
You do whatever, you become part of that. It's too big for you not to sort of mimic it in a way. And so I really like everyone here. I think there's like you said, like an edge, like something wild, and it is. It's windy here. Yeah,
it's funny because there's a theme that I've has come through in a lot of the conversations on this podcast. Many times, and obviously the nature of people I'm having conversations with, but there's this, talk of how our environment shapes us, and how it affects our state of mind and our way of being in the world. And obviously always, one of the edges I'm often exploring is that, in a highly industrialized culture where more and more of life happens in very constructed, built environments that have designed out most of our connection to anything that's not human, and what is that doing, and obviously, and how that shifts people. And again, so when when you're able to kind of break through that and experience something where you are part of this bigger system that's at play, and you're more, you can't design it out, and but just how it feels, and I know it almost feels obvious, but it just feels more and more. This stuff feels really important, like to our future, how we're designing places, and we're continuing to build these. These kind of big human populations in these cities, but why aren't we designing more of this into those places? Because it's all possible.
Yeah.
It's just nuts, and seeing how, it's impacting people's mental well-being and health, their ability to, one of the things always interesting, people talk about, solitude and nature, but I always think that when you're in relationship with the natural world, you're in community. You're sort of, you're participating in all these different ways. And I don't know, there's an openness.
And you're getting to see seasons. So I think your body clock maintains the right rhythm, really ancient rhythm. And, I think you can get very easily distracted by nature, the most simple things, especially if you're noticing it all the time. I think,
And I think that exactly that, and this darkness thing. I was reading recently about some research that's being done into kind of artificial lighting and what that's doing to human health. So there was some kind of survey that was a piece of research. I can't remember where it came out of, but it was suggesting that people that were working in like night shifts in artificial lighting environments at times during the night. So there was talking about hospital workers and factory workers and all sorts. And that seemingly there was higher rates of chronic stress-related illness, including cancers and stuff. Yeah. And again, I know that's not on its own. It's obviously part of all kinds of other factors, but it makes sense, right? Because our physiology, our body is no different than it was thousands of years ago, right? It's just the way our body responds to elements, light, darkness, all these kind of things, our own kind of rhythm and internal system, it's still tuned in to that. Yeah. So if we're putting it into environments that are completely off kilter, lighting when we should be in darkness. And I got that, you really get that light here last night, that just, it gets dark, it's dark, it's properly dark. And say you want to just turn in, which is amazing.
We have like zero light pollution here because the Kudhva, they're just lit by candles and torches, and we don't have lighting your way, and actually it's much better.
Yeah, well, and it's that edge again, right? It's a bit of edge.
Yeah,
but it's healthy because you're awake.
And sometimes, one of the Kudhva K4, it's like a little bit tricky to get to, and people have turned up. I've turned up in the middle of the night and people are slightly lost. And I have to say, make sure that you go round that tree over, so you sort of walk them through it over the slatted wood, across two big slates, the stream's on your left, It
sounded like you were, I was going to say, I felt like I was going back, going back in time, past the big slate, by the river, past that goat willow over there, and it's just like those, it's not Google Maps, is it? And no. I love that. It's like, it's like going back again. I've been talking about this a lot recently as well, like this sort of, the modern world doesn't like this idea of going back. It seems to think that all the intelligence is ahead, but actually, Christ, there's so much wisdom to be drawn on.
Yeah. Well, I did think yesterday at the Sunday service, that the people because it's tricky to get here, you've got to go to the bottom car park, walk, again, like it's like a map, walk past the engine house. You have to use a map. We've got
I like your signage. It's like, if you want, what does it say? It's like, because you give people a choice of routes. There's a sort of like the easier route, but
and
it's
the
longer.
Adventurous route.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So when people turn up, I'm like, okay, I've already got judgment, which I shouldn't have. Sorry.
Oh, but you've given choice, which is what I like. It's like for those that want to.
It's fun. It's fun. Again, it's like,
Louise, we should call it a day there. Thank you so much for making Kudhva happen. It's been amazing to come and hang out and visit. Aww. And wish you great vibes for the onward journey.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I very interested to have more conversations with you. I think you're doing great things, and I like all these thought patterns. I like these new ideas and fresh perspective, and positive attitudes. That's what's going to change things.
It is. He says, because I've had a night in a Kudhva, you see, I'm alive. Oh, thank you. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Louise from Kudhva. It really is an amazing place. If you get the chance to go, do visit Kudhva in North Cornwall. If you want to just ground yourself, escape from the madness, reconnect with your deeper self and to life as it's unfolding all around you, I heartily recommend Kudhva. Creative inspiration, creative energy, it's all in abundance there. And fascinating how she's building it out and the kind of attention to kind of detail and just the energy of the place. Go check it out. Go check out Kudhva. Okay, so thanks very much for listening. It does mean a lot. And really appreciate it. So if you like the show, if you like what I'm doing, please do share with others who you think might also be digging it. If there's questions or thoughts or ideas or provocations that are coming to you through these podcasts, please do reach out. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, dan@thespaceship.earth, or you can get me on Twitter @dansolo, Instagram @dansolo. It means it's really great to have connections from people, so please do reach out. And if you like the show and you fancy giving me a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be awesome as well, so please do that. It doesn't take long. We can literally do it in seconds. But that'd be marvellous because it helps the podcast to reach more people. If you're digging the Spaceship Earth and you want a t-shirt, I've got these lovely Earthling t-shirts that I've designed up with my good friend Loz Ives, and you can purchase those via T-mail from my site, thespaceship.earth. Follow the merch sign. And yes, go easy out there. Remember, folks, there are no passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're all crew. Until next time, peace and